Yeah, I just think group business is crucial. Retreat business is back massive. Like they want to sit in a circle, they want to have a bonfire, they want to go on a boat, they want to go for a hike. They don't want to sit in a corporate boardroom. But being able to have a place that can house a meeting and then have alternative things that they could do as well is huge. And I think wedding business is just necessary, right? Because every weekend is not going to be sold out. There's going to be, and if there's bad weather, group wedding business mitigates weather impact. Whereas like last weekend it was pouring in upstate New York, pouring. There was a huge storm. And if we didn't have 50, 60 group rooms with a wedding, I mean, we would have gotten killed. The weatherman kills transient weekend resorts, like kills. So I like mitigating downside with group business wherever I can. I would not do a hotel without event space, period.
John, I thought a really good place to start would be to talk about your journey as a hotelier, because I think a lot of people who start in hospitality, everyone wants to one day own their own hotel. I mean, maybe there's a few people that don't, but most people that go through the struggle, the pain, the happiness of hospitality eventually want to own their own hotel. And you have done that from basically rising through the ranks. So maybe you could share your story with us as an opener to the conversation today.
Sure. Yeah. I started out as a dishwasher when I was 15 years old at a pizzeria and worked my way up to be a waiter at a country club and thought I wanted to be a chef. And I went to culinary school and graduated and figured out that a chef life was going to be probably a difficult one. And I have so much respect for them, but I decided I want to be more of a businessman. And then I got into Penn State Hotel School. And I graduated there. And during that time, I did an internship for the Renaissance Grand Beach Resort in St. Thomas at the time, which was a great property in the United States Virgin Islands, and really saw how a big resort worked. And there was a great management team there and an incredible general manager there. And he was this like dashing, smart, intelligent, man that I was like, I want to be that guy. And he was like European and also down to earth and a great leader. And he was running this large, very sophisticated resort business. And so I was kind of love at first sight that I wanted to be a hotelier. And then I went out of Penn State. I started with in 1996 Wylder Hotels, which was kind of an offshoot of Marriott at the time, and a lot of Marriott leadership. Guys like Les Bentley and Dave Johnson, like legends in the business, were growing this fast, company, and it was actually a very exciting time and pretty entrepreneurial back in Wylder Hotels. And then they did a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and it grew and grew. And I did everything. I became a salesperson. I did food and beverage. I worked my way up and became a hotel manager within 4 years at Wyndham through a management and development program, and learned, everything from P&L responsibility and how to hire people and how to train and how to, look at group business and revenue management. And it was a really incredible experience that gave me a lot of confidence. And I'd say my biggest break was I met Henry Callan through friends I was networking with who was opening the Hotel Giraffe and Park on 26th Street. And he was opening the Library Hotel, and he had the Elysee Hotel, and he had the Casablanca. And it was 2000, and he hired me as general manager in April of 2000. And, W Hotels was just getting started. The only true boutique hotel was down the street. Ian Schrager had opened up the Morgan's Hotel. And so we opened Hotel Giraffe, which was brand new construction. I became general manager, which was a huge break at 26 years old. and he literally gave me the keys to the property and said, figure it out. And he was a great mentor and super entrepreneurial. He didn't know how to open and turn on a computer, but he called 15 times a day to be like, what's happening? What are we doing? Are we selling out? What are we doing? How's the customers? Is the bellman in place? Have you inspected the rooms for today? How do they look? Are the flowers fresh? And the vibe, cleanliness and just friendliness. So I just learned through both corporate and gentlemen like Henry Callan. And I was the GM there for 3 years and went through peak New York kind of RevPAR times. And then we went through 9/11. I was there on 9/11 when the planes hit. And then we went through how to live in New York and have to cut staff and but hold on to staff and figure out how to run in some really very scary times in New York City. And then New York came back and left on very good terms to go open up the Roger for a private equity firm, which acquired the Roger on Madison and 31st. So I went from a 72-room hotel to a 200-room hotel. And it was a union hotel, which was my first union hotel job, which was really interesting. And we did a big reposition there. So I did new construction, and then I learned how to reposition a hotel from kind of like a 2.5 star to a 3.5, 4-star hotel. And we learned how to we were very strong kind of asset managers. And so we really learned we took a hotel that was doing 9 million in revenue to 20 million in revenue and 10 million in EBITDA. And so we created a tremendous amount of value there, and ended up trading the hotel to LaSalle, to a REIT, and then we actually retained management. And we started, never done third-party management before. It always worked for owners. And then we took on another deal with LaSalle, which is now Pebblebrook, but in San Francisco. So I learned how to do an acquisition. In between there, I left that private equity firm for less than a year to go open the Ace on Broadway and 29th. And I met Alex Calderwood, and when the 4 Ace partners were together back in the day with GFI, and this is with Andrew Zobler, who this is pre-Seidel when he was with GFI, and you had designers like Roman and Williams, you had Ken Friedman, you had this incredible group of talent that was coming to its own, and that project really made a lot of people's careers, and got exposed to, another new development, super entrepreneurial, got it ready to open. And then the private equity firm JRK asked me to come back as president to run the company. And I did that and took over 6 hotels. And we went on to acquire and sell big assets, a Sheraton in Nashville. I renovated Oceana Santa Monica, Oceana Santa Barbara, re-renovated the Roger for LaSalle, acquired the Villa Florence in San Francisco. So really learned, a lot from REITs and private equity on the acquisition side, the underwriting side. We were underwriting a lot of deals. So, I came up from a pretty hardcore operations, hotel management, and then really learned, how to capitalize deals, how to analyze deals. I was going to Alice every year. I was going to the shows. I was talking to brokers. So, that led me, I had a really good run there, and I was there for 6 years as president, and then decided that I wanted to, kind of branch out, and went and worked for Brad Corzin and Brian DeLoe at Proper Hotels, and started as chief operating officer, kind of ground up pre any Proper hotel being opened. Took on, management of Avalon Beverly Hills, Avalon Palm Springs, and started working on the development pieces for them. And that was a really incredible experience working with those guys. I think they're geniuses. And then from there, after about a year and a half, really decided that I wanted to go on my own. And I thought that there was a lot of opportunity in the resort drive market, which, had always done really well in any kind of market, frankly, through '01 and '08. Drive market leisure hotels always perform the best in any asset class of hotels from a RevPAR perspective. And, I think I started Wylder Hotels in June of 2016. And the idea was because in 16, RevPAR was at peak, and there was no good pricing of urban, or it was all about urban at that point in 16. So I thought that there was opportunity to go look for like what I call like surf lodge assets, where drive market, heavy leisure, could do corporate meetings and like retreats and weddings. And I thought you could buy them at a discount because everyone was looking at urban and wanted to do kind of outdoor adventurous properties. So, hence Wylder Hotels. And so we've been focusing on that for the past 7.5 years now. And so, yeah, that's how it all kind of came about.
There's so much to unpack there. I'm going to go back to when you're 26 and you were put in charge of the Giraffe Hotel. What surprised you most when you're 26 years old, never had a GM job, and all of a sudden you're coming in to manage a very important boutique hotel before boutique hotels were even a thing or even called boutique hotels?
I mean, I was definitely way in over my head at the beginning. And but I relied on just hard work, tenacity. I knew revenue management really well. I knew sales. I knew rooms and F&B operations really well. And honestly, I just worked really hard, and I focused on the customer. It was a very beautiful hotel. The customer service, people are extremely happy there. It was more about, could we push the rates and occupancy? We were always worried, could we keep pushing? Because there wasn't really like a star set. No one was really doing what we were doing. So, we just kept pushing the rates to see if we could get it and not see like a decline in customer service or occupancy. And, really trying to figure out the market there, because then after that, boutique hotels started exploding in New York City. And, we didn't have a lot of distribution. It was, you either called us or you booked on our website. So I think relied heavily on my corporate experience, to be honest. Bringing organization to a very Wild West situation, and a lot of mistakes, like just making trial and error, making learn from mistakes. My boss, the owner, was extremely supportive, and the product was that good that it made it a lot easier when the product's really good and location was phenomenal. So you could kind of make mistakes and, everyone still loved you.
How do you think about rate ceiling in a market where you don't have a lot of direct competition? Like there weren't a lot of boutique hotels in that location in New York City. You operate today kind of these regional resorts where there's probably not a lot of competition around you. How do you think about the rate ceiling in those kind of contexts?
Yeah, I mean, you really look at year over year, and you really try to push the rates, and the market tells you pretty fast, like it just stops booking, and yeah, and you can try to, you look at compression weekends, and I find that Saturday nights in leisure markets is the night where there's compression, but then you push the rates up too much, and then people don't want to come for 2 nights, and you lose the Friday occupancy. And so I think it's always a struggle to that Friday, Saturday differential in rate. I'd rather have people come stay for 2 nights and not and try to get the occupancy higher on Friday than just peak out on Saturday ADR, because that's basic revenue management, right? It's like, so I think, you have to look at your TripAdvisor comments. You have to talk to the staff, and the value perception is important because you got to play the long game. If the value's not there, pushing the rates is not going to help you long term.
When you were at the Roger and had to basically completely transform the hotel, take revenue from 10 million to 20 million, double it, what were the key insights you learned in doing that? Because I think a lot of people try and do it, but it's very hard to do on that level.
Yeah, it was a great acquisition because the location was so good and it was so underperforming, and it was full of OTA. It was probably like 100% OTA contribution. So, building the content, building a website, building the product, and then really bringing in market segmentation, right? At the end of the day, sales team, we brought on a lot of corporate business there, a lot of transient corporate business, and, at much higher rates. And then when you have that corporate segmentation to replace all that OTA, then you can find the bar business for the last 10 or 15, 20% of the room nights to fill that off. And that's really, it really comes down to market segmentation. And in the resort and leisure resorts too, you really want to try to, you're not going to fill every weekend with 100% transient on every weekend. You got to find some group business in there. And, you want to have more than one, revenue stream coming in the property at all times, because that's going to diversify and allow you to maximize revenue. So I think having a good marketing plan with a sales team, with a great website that caters to both transient and group business and corporate business is really how you do it, period.
What makes for a good hotel website?
Yeah, photography, period. You can do all the photos don't lie. The photos you can't overmarket it. It's got to be what it actually is. If you overmarket it and it makes it look like it's better than it is, great, you'll get people there. But if it is what it is, and the photography is great, and it's better than when people are there, the actual experience than the photography, then you've really done something. So photography is huge. And I think the color and the vibe of how it feels, and the copy is important, both for people to get a vibe, and also on the SEO backup, search words, obviously SEO is crucial. And you have to be thoughtful in your positioning of your brand and what you're doing. And we're always trying to not be like anybody else. Wylder Hotels, we really don't want to be doing what anyone else is doing, and we want that to come across in our website, in our own voice.
Is that market specific, or is that just the brand in general? You want to try and be different from whoever you're competing against?
I think the brand in general, and then it's market specific too, for sure, because we want to embrace what's there and what's going on there, and what the story is behind that particular property, that particular area. Because we're trying to go to areas that are surprising locations, right? We're not looking to be where everyone already is. We're looking to go where no one else is.
So then how important is it for you to tell the story of what people can do in those locations where they may not know what you can do or what's going on? If they're like a smaller drive-to city, other than the hotel, which may be a destination of itself, how do you tell people, like, here's how you can spend your day?
Yeah, we have at our property happenings, you can click on, and you can see what's happening. There's a calendar of everything that's going on. And then in Instagram, which has, become top marketing, we then, inside 72 hours, we're then reminding people what's happening. We have tie-dye classes, we have swing dance, We have paint and sip. We have water aerobics in the pool. We like to do a lot of stuff that is not like over, it's just like kind of nostalgic, fun, basic stuff that is easy to do and it's low impact and it's like 1 hour. It's like, yeah, come make a tie-dye shirt, go do some water aerobics, do s'mores party from this time to this time. And so we have a hatchet throwing thing. It's so well attended in Wyndham. People love throwing a hatchet, So like we try to do fun, like low impact, you know, untraditional, but slightly corny, but you know, people love it. We have a cocktail making class that's like learn how to make a cocktail. This is not, it's just it's the human interaction and it's kind of like, yeah, it's just really honest. So I think people love that. So we talk about it on our website, we talk about it on Instagram, we talk about when they get in. There's always a lot of stuff to do.
I was having a conversation with one of our partners, and we were, as the manager and co-partner, we were presenting our GM candidate for a new hotel. And one of the partners said, well, you also interviewed this, it's like a boutique hotel, smaller, 150 rooms. One of the other partners said, you also interviewed this person that was a GM of a 400 room, Marriott or Westin. It was one of those type of hotels in a big urban environment. Why didn't they kind of get into the final push? And I said, well, that type of GM typically is very different from a boutique lifestyle GM. Part of the reason is not just understanding the business, but it's the programming and the curation element. So in your properties, how much of that falls on the GM as almost like
100%,
kind of a camp
90 to
counselor?
100%.
So can you talk
Yeah,
about like how
huge.
you inspire and create that culture for them to do it?
I just say you got to have a lot of stuff going on at all the time. Figure it out. And I have two tremendous general managers who are resourceful, get it done, action oriented people. And I think they enjoy doing it. They see the return. They see the guest satisfaction it creates at the property. And so they're inspired, I think. And they also like the community of like making connections with these musicians, these yoga people. It's fun for them, and I think that they see that it works and that it's a low cost and that the ROI is like through the roof, right? Through the roof. And I would tell any hotelier, like, go hire a local banjo guy for $150 and give him a beer and a burger and have him play, or like go hire a Pilates instructor and see if they'll do water aerobics in your pool. Like do something and pay them $100 and see 20 guests show up and bring their husbands who are like hungover from the night before, and all of a sudden husbands are doing water aerobics in your pool. They would never do it and have the best time of their life. And then they're all telling you how much they love your hotel and they're coming back because that unique weird experience they just had that they would never normally do. And then the GMs are like, wow, this works and it's cheap and I can do it and I can put it on my marketing, and it's like boom. And so that's how it happens.
Is it important to bring people from the local community, like guests, into the restaurant and into these activities? Or does the hotel have enough business where you don't really need to make that a part of the deal?
Yeah, no, I like the high-low vibe of Wylder Hotels, and I like that we're super come as you are. I have a saying like, I want a billionaire next to a working man, next to a you know you know a local, next to a policeman, next to all hanging out in the same place, right? And you don't know who's who, and um that's what we want. And so I think that we try to create an environment that makes everyone very comfortable. We're not, everyone asks me, who's your market? Market's everybody. Everybody. Why would I want to alienate a market? Want everyone to feel comfortable.
So you were there at the start of this whole boutique lifestyle movement. Then you did Ace, which was like a completely new transition point. I remember I took my dad to the Ace Hotel. I'm like, you got to see this thing. It's crazy. Like the toilet paper holders are these little like old pipes that they just, stuck out of the wall and put the toilet paper on. And then you were there with Brian and Brad, who you called geniuses at the start of Proper, which I think is kind of another iteration of where boutique lifestyle design oriented hotels have gone. Talk to me about how they've transitioned over the years and what's changed through all those points and where we are now.
My harsh view of it is that there's a lot of fakers out there trying to do it, So there's very few true independent boutique hoteliers out there really doing it. There's a lot of institutional capital. There's a lot of brands with soft brands trying to do it. And I can walk into any hotel and tell in a second if it's a true independent hotel. And so I think if you separate what I call like a watered down corporate boutique hotel, there's a ton of that. They're all doing kind of the same stuff. A lot of it's over designed. A lot of it is been there, done that, seen that. And then there's what I call like real independent hotels where you could see the soul. You could see there's like one or two people who are really behind it, like entrepreneurial people, and that is very kind of you could feel the soul of the property. You just know, and that can't be faked. And that personality of that independent hotelier comes through the GM and the staff. And you just know. So I think that location is to me the biggest thing, and where you are and where you choose to go really makes a statement about your brand or your what's going on there and what the building is like, and is it a new build? I think new builds are generally all institutional capital, right? It's either a REIT or private equity, and it's really hard for new builds to look like a true independent boutique hotel, I think. And then when you get a refurb or renovation, and if it's done well and they keep the soul, hopefully the bones are good. You know, those are the ones that I like the most. Usually, it's rare that I see a new build that I'm like, oh, love this property, right? There are some, but it's more rare, you know.
I'm going to go stay at Austin proper, and that's a new build, but everyone seems to think that's pretty amazing. So I'm excited to see how they're able to blend the sense of place and soul in a glass box.
Yeah, one of the few people doing it well on new builds, you know.
Where do you think most people, institutional capital who you've worked with, you've worked for, where do most of those folks mess up in their execution of a soft branded hotel or a lifestyle hotel? I mean, I can feel it, you can feel it, but what do you think the actual things are if you had to go fix one of those that you would need to start with?
Yeah, I mean, I think lobby, F&B, rooms, FM. You could. It's usually like one of the big flags, one of their soft brands that you just know it's like basically watered down, stuff. And you just feel it in the way that when you walk in the doors between the lobby and the F&B, how that's working. Mostly in urban. I just think that it's a lot. I hate to say it, but it's a lot about the vibe and like the choice of materials. Is it real materials? Is it all engineered? Is it really colorful? Does it feel like it's been there? I mean, I think that's the problem. Is it just feels a lot like boutique hotels are just trying too hard, trying to be cool. And I just think, is it going to look good in 5 to 10 years? Like it's always been there. If I walk into the Bowery Hotel tomorrow in New York, it's going to look as awesome as it did when it opened, and it will look 10 years from now as awesome as it did when it opened 20 years ago. And it's never going to need a refresh unless the carpet, got spilled and stained, right? And so that's the kind of hotel that I want to go there, where you could feel like it's meant to be here. It's an instant classic. And there's a lot of properties like that. Sean McPherson is a guy that he just gets it, right? And so it's similar to like a Keith McNally restaurant. You go there, and you just like, wow, it feels like it's been here. I feel like I'm in Paris, or it's just like real, and whereas if you go to like some soft brand, it's like somebody in like a flagged corporate R&D, made this up, and it's like could be anywhere, right? And so I think you got to nail the sense of place. You got to nail the realness of it. And
when you're concepting a new hotel and you find a piece of property, what's the process you use to identify the vibe and the sense of place? And who do you hire from the beginning to help you do that? Like, does the designer come on day one? Do you do it with a branding person? Do you not do it with any of those people and come up with it yourself and then call the designer once you have this mood board that you've created? What's your process?
Been with the same branding firm since day one. Revolver, Vincent Ficar, great guy. And we know we just know what Wylder is, so we don't have to like think about it. It's just we know what it's going to be. And sure, there's a process. We iterate on stuff. On the design side, worked with Post Company, and they just get it. I don't have to like think through it with them. We're always just trying to make it feel like it's always been there. And is it going to look good in 10 years? And if it doesn't feel like it's not ever been there before, if it looks like it's designed, then it's not going in. We don't want anything that looks designed. That the design is to not look like it was designed. And so if it doesn't meet that criteria, then we're just trying to have a sense of place, and like we're big on refurbishing and restoring. So if something's weird that's there, it looks cool, we just leave it. We just embrace. I think on a refurb, you just embrace what's there, and if something's like operationally bad, then you adjust, of course. In Wyndham, we needed the ballroom was too big. We had to like make a bigger lobby, so we made the lobby bigger and made the ballroom smaller. We opened up some spaces, and the kitchen was like the size of a country club, and we made the kitchen smaller, and we made a restaurant and a bakery. So it's like you look at maximizing square footage, and you try to do, I think, kind of like what makes pragmatic sense for the business. And the designers, it's not about the designer. It's never about the designer.
One of the earlier guests on the pod, John Grossman, he actually just changed the name of his company, I think to his parents or something, but he had this great saying, it was "Don't fight the building." And I was reminded of that.
Yeah, he has great properties. He does a great job. Smart. Yeah. Embrace what's there. If there's weird stuff, keep it. It could be cool. Yeah, because,
Do you have any like particulars that you have to have a bar in this certain location, in this proximity to the front desk, or you need a restaurant that has access to the street, or you don't care about that? Are there any of these little details that you are going to push really hard to try and figure out in the public areas?
I want event space. I want a bar. I want a lobby. I want a restaurant. And I think more and more now I'm thinking about, if the restaurant doesn't have to be open 7 days, because it's just really hard to run a restaurant open 7 days. And the demand on Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays is so low. I like this idea of having a to-go or a bakery operation that's a small footprint where one or two people can run it, so that the guests who are staying there, not on the busy peak days, there's something, and, coffee, to go sandwich, to go beer here, whatever. So, I think a nice lobby is important to have like a sense of quiet space that's not busy, And if you want to have a real conversation with somebody and also kind of like feel the soul of the property and like read a book or play chess or, um, you know, I like having a quiet space that's not a part of a loud restaurant or bar. I just like that. Yeah, I just think group business is crucial. You know, I think if you're in I do resorts, so weekends you're gonna have transient demand, right? And I think that retreat business is back massive. And I think people want, or the business we're seeing at Wylder Hotels is non-traditional corporate retreats. They want to sit in a circle. They want to have a bonfire. They want to go on a boat. They want to go for a hike. They want to be outdoors. They want to go swimming. They don't want to sit in a corporate boardroom, you know. And I think, but being able to have a place that can house a meeting and then have alternative things that they can do as well is huge. And I think wedding business is just necessary, right? Because every weekend is not going to be sold out. You know, there's going to be, and if there's bad weather, group wedding business really mitigates weather impact. Whereas like last weekend it was pouring in upstate New York, pouring. There was a huge storm. And if we didn't have 50, 60 group rooms with a wedding, I mean, we would have gotten killed by the weather, right? Because people didn't want to drive. And so the weatherman kills transient weekend resorts, like kills. So I like mitigating downside with group business wherever I can on weekends. And there's no corporate transient business at the resorts I go. There's zero. Like Google doesn't live next door, you know? So I would like Google to come and do an event and check in Tuesday, out Thursday or Friday. And so I want to have space that Google wants to come to. I'm using them as a name, but it could be anybody, right? Because I think you need to drive demand for wherever you can. So I think event space is. I would not do a hotel without event space. Period.
Wow, that's interesting to hear, because I bet a lot of regional resorts or micro resorts have minimal event space, or maybe they have a lot of their event space outside. So the fact that it's so important to you, I think, is really insightful. Is there anything you've changed now because corporate retreats and corporate meetings like post-pandemic are so prominent that you've added into the hotels?
Meeting packages that are designed non-traditional, like go on a hike, have s'mores late night, do morning yoga. Like that's what our meeting packages are. We try to like customize this whole experiential thing. And yeah, I mean, I that's what we're focused on, is like outdoor adventurous corporate retreats. And we have a rec room with like shuffleboard and Pac-Man, and people do late night DJ. We do karaoke. Like that's a big deal. People love freaking karaoke. And they want to like let their hair down and get to know their coworkers, because a lot of these companies are working from home, so they got to get together 3-4 times a year at least to like talk to each other, right? So yeah, I mean, that's what we're doing. It's all non-traditional. We just want to be very unique. I mean, it's working. That's all I know is it's working. And the guest satisfaction from it is extremely high. Extremely high. So
I want to talk about now a little bit about how you find these properties, because I think it's hard. Maybe you think it's easy, but how do you source these special deals that you want to invest in to build Wylder?
I got lots of deals, man. Let's go do some deals.
Yeah, if you got deals, I got
easy.
capital and I can help you execute too. If we got a team, let's go do it.
Yeah, finding deals is not that hard. I go on LoopNet. I like My secret is find not like non-traditional brokers, residential brokers, broker who is friend of grandpa who owned the property in the family forever, who's just like doing it as a favor. Um, and I like to find family generational assets where the family is done and they don't know what to do with it. And they're like, we want out. And there's a lot of that out there where, grandpa, father, whoever, patriarch starts this resort business, has 3 or 4 or 5 kids. Kids don't want anything to do with it. And, they don't have the wherewithal or the sophistication to want to keep putting money in it and rebranding it because it is a ton of work, right? And if you've never rebranded and tried to then take your legacy asset and invest a lot of money into it, and you don't understand how to read a star report and like how you're going to reposition this to the upper category set, it's not their bailiwick, right? And they're better off just cashing out, taking their cash, and most times, the family splits it up and they go on their merry way, right? So all 3 of my assets that I've done with Wylder have been legacy family assets with non-traditional brokers. And when I can find the perfect storm of those 2 things, Jake,
you're in. Well, what else matters then, John? So like you're going through the list of criteria like key count, location. Give me your checklist of things that are important that are kind of your gating before you go into it.
drive market within 4 hours of a major city.
4 hours.
Yeah. If it's 3, better. Great. I don't want it too close. An hour feels like it's not far enough away, ideally, like no one else is there. And like the star set doesn't, I'm not looking for a star set. If there's a strong star set, it's probably not my deal. That means, it's oversaturated, blah, blah, blah. There's too many sophisticated operators in the market. And there's probably a sophisticated broker, and there's probably somebody already looking at the deal to leverage the price up. I don't know. So I would say minimum 50, but upwards of 150 to 200 rooms, full service, existing. Ideally, will do development. Will do hairy land use problems. Things that scare REITs and private equity and institutional guys, like, oh no, we don't like that deal. It's do this, it's do that, it's do this, it's do that. Great, I love that deal. Environmental problems, love it. Give it to me. So I think the hairier it is, the better. Because the institutional suits don't want to figure it out, and they're only worried about they're just half glass empty guys.
I know. A lot of
this is everything that's going to go wrong. It's all going to go wrong. Okay. I don't look at it that way.
Do you find that, well, let me ask you this way. Like, how have you thought about raising capital for deals so that you're able to do the deals that you want to do? Because a lot of the institutional capital might not be able to do the deals that you want to do. They might buy them from you once you put in all the work. But how do you align the capital with your vision?
It's really hard. You got to kiss a lot of frogs. There's a lot of frogs out there. You kiss them, you figure out who has the wherewithal to do the deal. It becomes easier as you're more known, and you have like obviously proven that you've been able to make money, so it's easier to find capital now than it was when I was first started, for sure. Obviously the debt markets right now are a total disaster. And so that is and I think if you could take stuff down with equity and place the debt later, you have more patient capital, or people who get the long-term play and they realize the asset's great. They're willing to take a hit on, kind of like year 1, year 2 returns, knowing that they're going to refi, right? you need people who understand that, who are patient, who don't need to like start making 8% pref day one, right? So it's the profile of the investor, and finding good capital partners is really hard. It's really hard.
It's hard. And have you ever tried, creative structures with sellers where you're doing seller financing or things like that?
I've never done it. I've talked about it on acquisition deals. You know, Usually the deals I want to do now are larger, so it usually won't work because it's too much paper, Um, so I think that, I'm trying to do 20 to 30 to 40 to $50 million deals now. So it's harder. And I think you just got to bring a lot more equity to the table, and you got to underwrite. It's got to underwrite year 1 and 2 with, it comes down to underwriting, right? And if you underwrite really expensive debt and you can make it work with a heavy interest reserve, because at the end of the day, it's about basis, Jake. Is the basis low? If it's a low basis with huge upside, you go forward, right? But if it's really tight, year 1 and 2, it's the underwrite is not that exciting, then you pass because it's not worth your time, right?
As I'm understanding your strategy, though, everything should almost have a low basis because you're focused on markets that a lot of other people aren't interested in. There's no star report even available. So that sounds like that's the first intro to any of your deals, is an incredible entry point where you have a lot of room to make mistakes.
Replacement costs way below replacement costs. Way below. Yes. And the reno's got to be fast so you can get operating quickly, right? It can't be too. I love a cosmetic remo where the bones are good. I don't have to do a lot of heavy, permitting, and it's like hardwood floors, paint, new bathroom, FF&E, and like the bones are great. Get out of the way. Like I like them just getting out of the way of a property because it's great, And so I think the longer it takes, the more complicated it is on the permitting, entitlement, whatever. The more I'm like, eh. But if I can get in and get out and get open and start rebranding and start cash flowing, I like that.
I want to talk a little bit more about the competitive set, because if no one else is there, are you running a comp set in like a 4-hour radius of whatever city you're competing against? So like, you might be competing against property that's 8 hours from you, but 4 hours from where everyone else is coming from.
Yeah. For example, in Wyndham, Scribner's had been there, had been killing it, doing great. They don't report, but we know what they're doing. We know how well they're doing. We in Tilghman Island, Perry Cabin, in a Perry Cabin's down the street. We know how well they're doing. We see what they're charging on their rates. It's very obvious. Okay. So, we make some very educated assumptions to know that it's going to work. You could run a star set for like similar properties. It's kind of hit or miss. But I think you really need one good comp that's within an hour's drive that is doing it, and you just go there and you look at the website and you talk to the people and you stay there and you're like, yeah, okay,
That's it. Let's do a deal. We got to do it. Why are you focusing on deals that are 20, 30, 40, 50 million? What have you learned having done deals bigger and smaller than that?
30 rooms or 300, it's a ton of work, right? And if I'm a sliver equity promote player, the management fees in year 1 and 2 are not that high, right? And it's like it's so much work. It's so much work. It's nonstop. It's like having a baby, and it's like you don't have a wife. It's like you're just it's like you don't have a nanny. It's like 24/7, 365. you're dealing with snowstorms and rainstorms and pandemics. It's like, it better be worth it, right? If it's not worth it, why do it? It's just too much work.
So how do you make it work? You're based in California. Your properties today are on the East Coast. How do you manage them? How do you make it work? And how do you think about looking at other properties that aren't in California, maybe? Although California, if it wasn't for the like high cost of labor and properties, would have some amazing opportunities for you.
Yeah, California's brutal. Um, I am from upstate New York. I'm from the East Coast. All my family's back there. It's, the deal. I go to where the deal is. If the deal's amazing, you got to do the deal. If those two deals that I have on the East Coast are amazing deals, right? So they're amazing Wylders. They're iconic properties. They were worth it. They're worth the pain. So you got to go to you got to be flexible to where the deal is. I would love to find a deal in Florida. It's so hard. Everything's priced so high. It's just really hard to find something worth doing in Florida. Yeah, I would love to do something in the mountains in the West Coast. I would love to do something. I'll go to 50 states. Doesn't matter where the deal is. I'd like there to be an airport close by that I could fly to direct. That's my thing. I don't want to have to connect flights. I'll fly and drive an hour, 2.5, no problem. I don't want to have to connect flights.
Okay. I get it. I think that makes sense. We have a thing on our management company where we have to be able to fly direct from Florida or Philadelphia because it is so intensive. With that, then, how often are you visiting your properties and what's your communication and management style for your team at the properties?
I drive them crazy. So
That's how, you learned, right? When you were 26, the owner drove you crazy, right?
Yeah, no, I empower them a lot. I mean, I empower them. I hold them accountable. I go to Wyndham more than Tilghman Island right now, just because Wyndham is so ramping up and Tilghman is so much more stabilized. I was there both last week at both properties. I'm going back to Wyndham now. We're really trying to ramp to year two in Wyndham, so it's a big heavy lift to go from year one to year two. We're trying to grow the revenue significantly. The business is booming, so I'm way more involved day to day in Wyndham. Tilghman is doing really well, and it's talk to the GM daily. Email is of course, but we text and call all the time. I'm looking at the business. I see every expense. I see every revenue. Is everyone at work today? Do you have any positions open, right? Do you have open positions, right? Which department is strong? Which department's weak? What is the GM spending their time on? Is the GM spending their time in triage because of whatever reason, And I think you're always trying to get every department working, and most importantly, the sales and marketing department has to be working the best. So I think that's where I'm looking at is which department is strongest, which department is weakest, and then you attack the weak department to get it to make it stronger, right? And you're obviously looking at the P&L trends, and we run our properties pretty lean, and there's not a lot of fat. And so the general manager, I don't care any hotel, the general manager is the most important person in the hotel, period, end of story, right? If you have a good GM who's highly engaged, who cares, who's able to recruit and effectuate the sales and the staffing situation, you're going to be successful. If you don't have a strong GM, I don't care how good your hotel is, you are not nearly going to be successful.
What are the key characteristics and traits of a strong GM? You've been one, you've seen them all.
They have to have a strong foundation of time management. They're getting pulled in a lot of directions, and do they have a pulse on every single day, and who's performing and not performing? They have to be able to coach. They got to be a great coach, right? They got to be a great recruiter. And if they're a great recruiter and a great coach, they're putting out less fires. GMs that have a lot of open positions, who can't recruit, they're always putting out fires. They're always complaining about staffing situations, right? Can't find staff, blah, blah, blah. Great GMs find staff. Great GMs keep staff. Great GMs tell owners, we got to pay this person. We got to I don't care what the freaking budget is. This person's worth it, right? They fight for what is good for the hotel, and they drive revenue because revenue solves all problems. And they don't they hire and get other managers in their departments to be ride or die with them. I think that's really, it's like finding ride or die people who want to be a part of that property, who want to do it, because there's going to be a lot of hard times, and ride or die, people can overcome adversity is the number one thing that GMs can do to recruit people, because there's a lot of people who just want to collect a paycheck and don't want to actually work. I just want to I want balance in my life. Okay, well, maybe you should have gone to the U.S. Mail or the government, right? Why did you sign up for hospitality? This is not balance. Okay. We try to provide that and give 2 days off and vacations and benefits, but you're doing it because you love it and you think it's a great career. Or you could go work for Four Seasons or Marriott hotels, right? And that's a different kind of situation. But it's not going to be independent boutique hotels that are trying to do ambitious things, right? That's my opinion.
It's interesting. I'm always surprised sometimes when I hear people leaving our company that I liked, that I thought were really strong, and that go to a different company, because I think what's unique to some extent about us, because we're still small compared to a lot, and you, is that GM, that leader, has an interaction daily with the owner of the property, or weekly or monthly with the owner of the property. And at most of these hotel companies, they're not going to talk to the owner except for once a year, and maybe at that point. Whereas, you might be able to put that person on an actual career path as opposed to just talking points. And I think people in hospitality in leadership roles sometimes make a lot of bad decisions and go work at the wrong place that doesn't align with their career ambitions, or at least what I thought they were.
Yeah, I think at our company, I think people get a lot of opportunity faster. They have a chance to really move up. They get a lot of responsibility. They get to make mistakes and learn from it. And they're in the real world and they get real world experience. And I think that there's a lot of gratification from doing it in the real world and really, really doing something great, as opposed to a larger entity that, it doesn't necessarily matter if they're there or not, but if they're not at our hotel that day, things are going to fall apart, and that, the wedding isn't going to happen. The corporate retreat isn't going to happen. That big VIP, that press piece isn't going to happen. And so those are very meaningful moments in the business and in their career. And I think that's why a lot of people like working at our companies, because they get a lot of responsibility and they get the gratification of, excuse me, of doing real world things that matter,
Looking back at the 3 deals that you've done, what are some of the mistakes that you made that you're now going to correct going into the future?
Whew. Yeah, I won't do another hotel in Northern California. I won't do one. I just think the science of fires and the over regulatory pandemic stuff was it was just devastating in terms of forced shutdowns. I think the labor market in Northern California is really rough, And I think that the science is not on Northern California's side as it comes to fires and the summertime, Um, so I think um, geographically, I'm going to be very smart about, I think, what the weather impacts and how, what's happening, you know, how hot are the summers, how cold are the winters, and, what is the transportation to this property? Because I'm doing Wylder Hotels, right? These places are in the middle of nowhere or in weird places, right? Is there a labor market that's legit? Is there black swan events that are going to really impact us negatively? And yeah, I'm going to think long and hard about that. And I think who you take capital from is crucial, and finding the right partnership structures that goals are aligned long term, so that when the boat rocks, everyone's rocking together as opposed to like their own personal interests.
What about on the construction and renovation side? What are the mistakes people make a lot, and what mistakes have you made?
I think when you do hardwood floors, you got to really make sure there's 4 coats of matte poly on there, because you don't want to be refinishing hard floors. It's like a must have. I'll never do, I hate carpet. I won't do carpet ever. Like, and I will never do an engineered floor. Like, I don't care how good it looks. I'll never do engineered floor. I want a real hardwood floor. And they're going to get beat up, and that's got to be part of the look. But I think just making sure there's enough coats so that when it gets wet and you have to constantly clean it, it's able to withhold. Um, um, I'd say HVAC, you got to be really smart with like PTAC units, but like that's a big decision. You don't want to go cheap. You don't want to get that wrong. You really want to get that right.
Does that mean not doing PTAC units or figuring out a way to cover them up?
No, I think like, there's HPAC, there's different variations of it. Um, I get away with a lot of stuff. Like, I don't mind PTAC units. I think they're great. Like, they're inexpensive. Like, people are like, "Oh, PTAC, it sucks." I'm like, I don't care. Um, I just you just want to make sure you buy the right unit and that it's going to last and you have a warranty, and like the engineering of it with the unit is correct installation. For exhaust and stuff, we've had issues where it's just not installed right. Um, if you can nail the HVAC in the floors, obviously plumbing and water pressure, those are issues that you want to nail. Yeah, I think sometimes you don't want to I think a lot of times I'm driving to make sure we're not spending too much money and we're keeping the basis low. And when actually the right thing is to actually increase the cap stack and do everything really right. And being too resourceful can be not as smart. And you always need more money than you think. So if the basis is X, the contingency is never big enough. Never. So I'd say that is my biggest mistake, is that not underwriting enough contingency or oh shit moments. And yeah, I think that's my biggest mistake.
I want to talk about the food and beverage side a little bit because your focus has been on full service hotels. We talked about your strategy with opening and closing, but like what are the key components of a food and beverage experience that you're looking for in your existing properties or ones that you're on the hunt for?
Yeah, so Tickler's in Tilghman Island is a crab shack, and it's comfort food. People want crabs, oysters, fried chicken, mashed potatoes, stewed tomatoes. They want a good cocktail. We pack it. We have picnic tables. I'm a big believer in picnic tables. I think picnic tables are dope. We paint them every year. They get beat up, and paint solves all problems, Jake. You just paint the shit out of them. And I'm I'm a big fan of picnic tables. I'm a big fan of outdoor dining. I think outdoor dining is amazing. Comfort food, like not overpricing it, keeping it simple, not trying to be this gastro Michelin star, blah, blah, blah. I think most restaurants are fussy. They're bougie. They're trying too hard. I like a restaurant that's honest, you know? And so Babblers and Wyndham, it's like Cheers. You know what I mean? It's loud. It's comfort food. Um, sure, it's got healthy items, but you need chicken wings, you need ribs, you need a good burger, and you need a solid cocktail program and a long bar. You can't have some like too skinny, weak bar that's too small. You want people to rub elbows. You want the bar scene lively. I mean, I'm just a big fan of a strong, sturdy, classic, iconic mahogany wood bar. It's like, how can you go wrong, you know? And a great cocktail program. And we're super cocktail heavy. We definitely have wine and beer. I'd say our wine lists are, we're not trying to win awards with the wine lists. We're not trying to carry a huge inventory. We're serving a lot of cocktails. And outdoor dining, outdoor dining, outdoor dining, outdoor dining. And then event space. Like our margins at our hotels and food and beverage are like 30%, and sometimes the restaurant can be 10 or 15. But then we'll do events where it's like 40 or 45, because we're getting site fees, we're getting open bars, we're getting, weddings where they're paying $250 per person. So I like event space. And then the same staff that's working the restaurant can work the events, and you get some synergy there. And so, yeah, I like comfort food. I like to keep it unfussy. I like to hire chefs that don't have big egos, that it's not about them. It's about the restaurant identity and what it is. And they want to make money, and they know how to hire people, and they can run lean, and they can figure it out. And that's my food and beverage strategy.
You know what's underrated? Patios. Patios and like front porches are so underrated, and every project should have them. And picnic tables.
Wyndham has a great patio we built, and it's easy. It's pressure treated wood. It's cheap. It's pressure treated wood, and you put some tables out with umbrellas, candles and lanterns at night, some music. What else do you need in life, right? And Tilghman is picnic tables and a crab shack on the water with a great view. I like food and beverage that has a view. Like if you can have food and beverage that has a view, that people enjoy the ambiance of it, it's great. I think outdoor dining is big.
Do you work with a consultant, or are you doing this yourself?
We're doing it ourselves.
I like it. So, a friend of mine, Jeff Klein, who owns the Sunset Tower Hotel and San Vicente Bungalows, we were doing an F&B project, and I was like, I don't know if I was complaining to him or I was saying like, this is what I want to do. And we're talking with the whole team, and he's like, you don't need to hire anyone. You don't need to listen to any chef. You know exactly what you want and what you're doing. You just need to tell them and point them in the right direction and make sure it's on point. And I think that was like some of the greatest F&B advice I've ever gotten, because everyone always feels pressure to listen to chefs or experts and this, that, and the other thing. But every person's their own greatest food critic, especially if it's your vision for the property.
I think that's good advice. I think at the end of the day, your guests at my hotels, you want to have a good experience because you're in the business of selling rooms. You want to make money doing food and beverage, which we do, but you want it to be a value add to selling rooms. So if your guests come in at our hotels, no matter what, they get a seat in the restaurant. We hold tables for them. If you're staying at our hotel and you can't get in our restaurant, that's a huge problem, right? So we got to get you in, and you got to have a good experience. Because if you have a bad experience at the hotel restaurant, it really hurts the total overall situation, right? Whereas if the hotel is okay, but the restaurant's amazing, wow, that can really help. So I think you got to be very strong about making sure that guest experience is good. So if you're breaking even in food and beverage and the experience is great and the rooms are making a lot of money, okay, hey, I can get on board with that. But you don't want to be losing money in F&B, and you don't want that experience to be poor for the hotel guests, because then you got a real problem,
All right, I want to bring it home with talking a little bit about like your hold strategy. So, are you building these hotels to hold forever? Are you looking at it on a 5 to 7 year hold period? Talk to me about the investment horizon.
Yeah, it's a great question. In my deals, with my co-GP deals, everyone has two. I'm not in the business of trying to. I'm in the business of growing the brand, right? So if I'm going to sell a hotel, I better get paid a lot of money. I mean, it needs to be really worth it. So and I think so. I look at it as an opportunistic thing. If you're in the hotel business, at some point you are going to exit. Okay, most likely. But I think I'm a long-term hold kind of guy. I like cash flow. I like management fees. I like growing a brand. So I'm not, a flipper. And I just think it's also weird times right now where the hotel fundamentals are so good. And, this is the longest, the recession's coming. I've been hearing from all the smart people in the room, right? The smartest people in the room have been saying, the recession's coming. The recession's coming. Okay, you guys have been saying that for a year. Like the smartest economic guys in the world, right? The real smart guys. Recession's coming, right? It never came. Well, it was actually during the pandemic when they shut us all down and people weren't traveling. That was the recession. The problem that's happening now is that interest rates are so high. So, who's buying deals right now? I mean, I got to believe transaction volume is at an all-time low in 2023. I mean, you may know better than me, but it has to be. People are not as materialistic, in my uneducated, I don't have any data to back this up, but people seem like they're not as materialistic about what shoes they're wearing or what brand, this or that, but they're 100% focused on where they're going and that experience of what they're doing. And so I think the idea is to survive until 25, Jake, right? Like that's when the interest rates are going to come down. I think that the fundamentals are going to continue to stay strong, and that, we're going to have a good year in 24. The government's going to do what the government's going to do. The election's going to do what the election's going to do. Short of another the black swan events are what, think about it. Since I've been in the business, 9/11, 2008 financial crisis, and then the pandemic, right? If you strip those three things away,
we've had a good run. Interest rates have also been 0%, which has helped fuel that. But I also think a good flushing will benefit guys like you and guys like me and gals like, people that we know, because there was a ton of capital that went into like goofy hospitality investments, or there were like we're still pitched deals by guys who we're like, hey, what's your experience? Like, oh, I'm like a tech founder. I'm like this. And we're like, okay, well, who's going to operate the hotel? Like, I'm going to operate it, or my partner like ran 10 Airbnbs. I'm like, this is insane. And like, this is the stuff is still there, but that's like the last bit of it that's going to get flushed out, which will be good for the people that actually know what they're doing.
I wish that the capital markets would change. I wish that, I think that there's a big opportunity out there for lending to, entrepreneurial, independent boutique hotels that are rational and make sense, And, there's been people like Rockbridge out there and a couple others, but I just don't think there's enough competition. If I was really smart and I had the expertise and time, I would just send up a firm that all I did was lend for boutique independent hoteliers and help them, give them advice on how to be successful, and just to not go through the hell that I've been through in the last 7 years trying to find capital that shouldn't have been that hard. You know what I mean? Because the deals made total sense. So maybe I'm wrong, but I think that I just think that that's a big opportunity right now in the market.
Yeah, it's coming. One of my friends just raised a debt fund, and during COVID, Dove Hill did 10 preferred equity deals. And that was our whole strategy. How can we basically leverage our network, be a strategic partner for someone, help them negotiate debt, help them negotiate the equity component, and then layer in whatever asset management value we could bring to the table, but let them do their thing. So I think that's a huge opportunity.
There should be an investment conference that's a real investment conference for boutique independent people to marry capital and operators or sponsors. You really need sponsors and capital in the same room that are in the independent boutique hotel world, because it doesn't really exist right now.
100%. And I would say I agree with you. The private equity world is a little bit frustrating because they say one thing and do another, every single time. It's like, here's what I'm looking for. And then you bring them that, I don't like investing in this market right now. It's a lot of excuses, which we've layered in heavily, and I know you have too, into just raising your own proprietary capital, because I actually think that's the future to our space, is basically going direct to consumer. And whether they're your customers, but they get it and they're putting their own dollars to work.
They either hate on your deal and they come back to you after you crush it and said, I wish I would have done that deal to you, or they want to beat you up on the term sheet and whittle you down so it's not even worth it. It's one of the two, right? And so, yeah, I think that there's just not enough. There's not an event in the country where good quality capital sources are sitting with good quality independent boutique hoteliers. It just doesn't exist. And that would be a really interesting thing.
Well, maybe we'll get together a group of 30 people and do one at your hotel.
Let's do it.
Hey everyone, it's Jake here. Thanks again for joining me on this conversation. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Lastly, don't forget to follow me on Twitter @JWurzak. I'll see you in the next episode.
Jake Wurzak is the founder and CEO of Dove Hill Capital Management. All opinions expressed by Jake and his guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Dove Hill Capital Management. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not reflect or represent real estate, financial, or investment advice.